looking at some of the videos as you need them. That's in our YouTube playlist, and I think there's like 50 some odd videos there. Stuff I've made, stuff I've put in that I think would be good reference for you. Look at the null objects in particular. So last time what we did, remember, was we did this animation, or I kind of walked you through some of this part here, and just starting to get the idea of animating the text going in and using these compositions. Now what you might find is that you might have a composition of like some text or whatever, and then you're like, wow, it looks good, but it's really slow, or it's too fast and I need to change the timing of it. Okay? So when that happens, I can look at this and I go, okay, boom, boom, boom. Here's the first composition. The second one is tie carrier, this part right here. Right? Or if I wanted there to be yet another, composition that comes in. But anytime I want to speed up or increase things and I'm nesting compositions this way, I don't have to go in to that individual composition, which has, if I go into it, that's part 2. If I double click here, this is part 2 here, right? Just that, because the image I have coming in is a separate piece. So I could go in and just adjust all the keyframes and tighten those up individually. But if I have like 10, 15, 20 of those, that can take a lot of time. And maybe the timing is good, it's just that it needs to be faster or slower. So since I'm nesting it in this final composition, and maybe I want to speed up or slow down just a certain part. If I play right now and want to speed up that second part, which is part 2, this composition, then I can actually right-click on that comp in the layers, go to time, and you see there's a few things I can do. I can reverse it. So a lot of times you want something to animate coming in, and then you want it to reverse back out. So whatever the animation is, I feasibly could duplicate that layer and then just have the duplicate reverse itself out so it goes back in reverse out the same way it came in. I can also do a time stretch or a freeze frame or freeze on last frame. A freeze frame is maybe I have an animation in my composition and I'm like, wow, it looks awesome, but it's not holding on the name long enough. I want to hold and then move on. And so whatever frame I go on, I could say, oh, freeze this frame, and it'll freeze for a designated amount of time, and then it'll start playing the rest of the animation. So I could say, oh, freeze it for a second or 2 seconds. So it'll hold it for 2 seconds, and then it'll continue on the animation. What I'm going to do is a time stretch. And when I click on that, it pulls up this menu here.
Oh, I like this. I like your image. It's a nice image there.
Oh, the little me. So here's the original duration of that composition. It's showing as 30 seconds. It's not necessarily that I have the entire composition animated for 30 seconds, but it's 30 seconds long. So I can stretch it, either increasing or decreasing how long it is, or I could just tell it how long I want the duration to be. So if it's taking 30 seconds, if I told this composition, and this is an important part, you'll notice that it's colon, it has these little breaks of time, and And I have to keep those when I change the numbers because that's differentiating, you know, days, hours, minutes, seconds, or, you know, just whatever that you're putting in. Hours, minutes, seconds, and then fractions of a second. So it's 30 seconds. I want to change that. Let's say I want to change that to like a 10. Right? So I basically cut it down to 33% because it was 30 seconds. And now layer and point, curve frame. So I'm just going to go OK. And turn this off. So now if I go in, you see how fast that came in now? The naming came in really, really quick. If I wanted to slow down, then I would have extended it out longer. But rather than me go in and say like, wow, there's 20 layers, each one has its own keyframes, and I have to go in and manually shrink every single one, I could just take that composition and just shrink it down. I can also parent, right now we're basically grouping things in compositions, and that gives me this power, but I can also group things with what's called a null object, which is an empty container. And if I were to create, let's say, a brand new composition, let's say, excuse me, I'm going to go in and I'm going to say new composition. We'll call this one part 3. And then I went in and added some text. This is how, oops, no. Oh, this is how. Now I'll take this. Let's move you. This. And I'm going to dupe it. Control D. A null works. Rotate that. Duplicate that. By grouping. Okay. And then rotate that. Oops. Okay. So if I were to go in and let's, just so you can kind of see this, this little effect here. No. So, animate in. Let's do a character shuffle in. Let's see what that looks like. Something like that. Oh, I like that. This, oh yeah, that'll work. Boom. And then I'll take that same one, drop it on this one. So we have this. Vroom, vroom. That's kind of cool. I like that. Zoom, zoom. And then right here, I'll do the same one. Zoom. So, do you see this?
I want to copy this for my project. This looks cool.
Okay.
Should we actually be doing this while you're...
I'm recording it, so you'll see it. I'm just showing you how, and then I'm going to post it up. But this, so that's all cool, but I got a better idea with this. So do you guys see what I have so far? So I have the text going like, oh, this is how a null group, null works by grouping. But I want to just kind of go out. But trying to read that sideways and stuff and upside down is going to get people with all sorts of crooks in their neck, and it's not very pleasant unless they're rotating their laptop around and then they get mad at me because they dropped their laptop. So we're going to parent all of these to a null group. Okay? So inside of here, I right-click in my timeline, New, Null Object. And you see it right here, it says Null Object. Okay? And this is my null object right here. It's an invisible little box that we can see right there. Okay. And so what I want to do is I want to parent all these to this and then have this start rotating. So I want to put this so it's kind of dead center of all of these. And that'll work. Okay? So here's my null group. Now pay attention to this section because this is the part of how you parent. Okay? So when I actually go into my timeline, we see we have all these little doohickeys. We have the source name, which is the name of the layer or the group or the solid that we're using. Modes, you know, for how they actually are, and this is how you can change it. And these are all modes like in Photoshop, where I can do multiply, you know, color burn, all those other ones. What I'm going to go forward to, and these are all like little settings that I can do, like different things like is it rasterized, how clean is the effect, if there's effects, turning them off and on, motion blur, which I think I actually do want on all these because I think that's going to be mighty cool. Adjustment layers if I'm using them, 3D layers which we talked about, but the parenting. So I have the null group at the top, and what I want to do is I want to parent all these layers below to the null layer. Okay? And how I do that, you see if I click on it, it gives me like, hey, what do you want to do it to? Or this little squiggly line, I can drag that to whatever I want to parent it to. And you see it automatically does it. So I can either choose, or I can just drag it and say, oh, yep, all these are parented to null 1. Okay? And I could rename it to something appropriate. But here is where it gets really cool. So now anything I do with null 1, oops, let me turn this off now. See that? It moves all of them. So where that gets really sweet is now I'll position that in. And now, watch this. I'm going to animate this, go into the transform, and I'm worried about the rotation. So I'm going to go to the beginning, and I'm going to key the rotation, turn on that. Boom. Set a key. Now, between here and here, I'm going to rotate this guy so it's on its side. Hold down. Come here. Boom. Let's just say 90 degrees. Man. Negative 90. Fine. So watch this. So. Isn't that cool? So now I set another key to lock it so it's not drifting. Go over to here. Negative 180. So watch what I have now. And really simple. So when I hit play, check it out. So not that complicated, right? And I could tighten that up to, like, let's say something like 16 seconds. Close this down so it's shorter. And now, if I were to go back to my final,
is that top line called the character line, or what is that top line called?
which one?
The top grayish green one. Yeah.
Oh, you mean this?
Up one?
Up here?
Yeah. What's that called?
So this is just my range that it's looking at. You see? So I can actually look at stretch. It's like the range slider in Maya. So I can focus on a section of the animation itself. I can shrink down these compositions so that they kind of disappear. See? And then I can go in and I won't make this too fancy with the exit. I'm just going to have it pop out. And then I'll pull in section 3. But what you'll see, let me kind of shrink this down a bit. And I need to get rid of this guy. So we have this, but we're doing that thing, right, where it's moving too slow. So I'm going to use the time remapping to speed up that last one I did with the rotating text coming in. Right? So actually that hangs way too long. Let's move all these guys so they are shorter. Pull this guy in. And I right click on that layer. I want to speed up. Time stretch. And instead of 13 seconds, let's make that 0.6 seconds. So now if we were to go in, I could shorten that out a lot. And I see that, and I'm like, you know what? Still not. Oh. Still not fast enough. So I'm just going to go into that one again. Time stretch. Let's make that 5 seconds. That's better. So now here's my final piece that I have with that, or just pops in. See? And then I would just keep on working on the timing. But does the null group make sense? You're basically bringing in something, yeah, that you're just parenting it to. And it's not like having a full-on composition. I'm just using it so I can move a group of things at once. I could scale them all together. I could rotate them all together. I could even make it a 3D null, making them 3D and rotate them so they flatten out and then fly off or do stuff like that. What was the other? The other thing is bringing in, like, different ways of bringing in Illustrator files. Yeah. No, that's, let me show you that again. That is a solid. So if I want to make a shape, then I just right click in here and I say new solid. And then I choose what color it's going to be. What size, if it's smaller. It doesn't really matter like the size, but I could name it, you know, whatever I want. Right now it's just giving me the color. It's giving me the name of the color I chose. So it's kind of like, you know, oh, the blue, the medium gray cyan solid one. It's like, yeah, it's a mouthful, but whatever. So I could hit OK, and it gives me that, right? And it'll fill it to the entire composition. And then, but I can actually go in, I can make it smaller, and I can actually scale it, see, to what I want. I can also go in and animate this any way that I want. So that's how I brought in the orange one, is I brought it in and scaled it. Here it is, medium orange solid. And I literally could just go in and have this guy at whatever size. If I zero it out, it'll totally disappear. So it's kind of interesting. That's how I could actually just go from here to here. So if I select that layer, press S for scale. Zero. Oops. Let's turn off the uniform scaling. 0, so it's totally invisible. Set a key. And then over here, I would want it at here, right? See? So then I could just move it. And then just make sure it's behind whatever it is that it's supposed to be. See? And then if I wanted to, I could also position, just change that. and I can hold down my arrow keys or shift arrow to nudge it. So if I go in now, check it out. See? And then move both of those out of the way. So what you should see is why it's important to plan out what you want to do so that you know what pieces to make. And it's a good idea to get to maybe start from a frame of the end result and then work your way backwards, even if it's just in the storyboard. Because then you can just figure out, okay, this is where it's going to be on this frame. Now I just have to backwards set it up so that, or the transition is what I want, right? But I know what my end result is going to be. So that's working with a solid. And a solid can also, we'll go over it more when we're doing the video stuff, but a solid can also act as a mask. So if I actually bring in an image or if I bring in an illustration or something, I can make it that shape a mask and fill with whatever the solid is. So let's jump ahead a little bit. I'll show you that, and then I'll just walk around and see what you guys are up to. But if I actually go in now and I make another solid, like that, and then I go to Illustrator, and no. Oh, let me just check something. DAC, that's right. Yeah, I know. I'm not hooked up to my hub at home. See if I... see if I can find something real quick. I think it's on one of my drives at home. That's fine. I'll bring it in next time. But the okay, we'll just do this. Yes. Thank you for mentioning that. That was one of the things. Hold on. So let me... actually pull up a WAV file. Okay, so when you guys have your WAV file in here, let me show you how that works. So I bring in my WAV file, I just drag it into my project assets, whether it's the sound, the narration, whatever. So there it is there. Drop it in down below. Here it is here. Can you see it? Once you have it in your timeline, you open up the waveform. And there, now you can see it. And then you would just zoom in so that you could actually see the peaks and stuff inside of there. You should be able to right click. So, well, are you on the Mac in Windows?
I'm in Windows, and what's happening is my little system alerts playback super loud, but the stuff flying out of After Effects is not playing back at actual volume.
Do you can you open up your volume mixer?
Yeah, I'll show you.
So when you actually go and you right click and then you go to the open volume mixer, and it should show whatever programs.
Yeah, it's not showing me After Effects. It only says headphones and system sounds.
Interesting. So let's take a quick look. So the question is like making it play a little. So it plays sound okay everywhere else, but just After Effects it's not that high.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say half volume. It's real low.
So if I go to edit, let me just check something. Edit, preferences, inside of After Effects. Audio, hardware, let me just take a look. Gesundheit. Let me check something. Yeah, I know. So one other thing I wanted to show you guys, because besides, we went over some of the preset animations you can use for text. There's also the properties that are just down here for transforms like position, scale, rotation of the entire sentence, word, whatever that you have in there. But there's also yet another that you can jump into. If I go to animation, animate text, and we see there's a whole bunch of these. You see, anchor point, position, scale, skew, so I could just add just one preset so you don't have like a ton of just all of those, or just one attribute, I should say. Fill color. Do I want to animate the color of the text? The stroke color, the stroke width, so that the outline of it thickens and then gets smaller. But I also have tracking, line anchor, line spacing, character offset, character value, and blur. If I want to add all these, I just say all transform properties. And what you'll see now is at the bottom, if we take a look, we see that there is now all those animator presets are now dropped into here that I could actually add. See? And now I could key those individually, as well as going in. Let me just go back to where that was. Animation, animate text, and we could see like, oh, line tracking, line spacing, all that stuff. And what you'll see is every time I do that, wow, oh, look, it's adding those things in. So now if I go in, look at that, where I can actually do a little animation. So imagine it flies in and then it does this woof, 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 woof. Just kind of comes in that way. So is it before and after, whatever? And then I could actually put that in and what the tracking amount is. So if I actually had the scale, so you see the scale is of each individual letter, not just the entire group. Okay? The rotation. The skew. Like it flies in. Showing motion. So these are all things I can add individually as well, and it's then you also have under transform the entire group. Okay? So in other words, if my position, if I set a key for the position here, and then maybe right here, I change my position, oops, not there. So it goes like this, right? But I could actually have it skew so that the skew of it, if we look at it, is, here we are, like this, like, wow, it's just going so fast. And it comes in, whoosh. And then, so I would key the skew there. Kind of goes that way. A little bit over. And then finally at 0. So if I get this effect, check it out, flies in. See that? So you're not limited just to those presets. I could actually go in and just like really have fun with just that kind of stuff, like whoosh, and then just have other things come in, but I just have to kind of know what I want to do first. That's the thing. It's sort of, there's too many ways to do stuff to rely on, you know, Bob Ross happy mistakes. They can still happen, but I just wouldn't bet the farm on them. There's still going to be stuff that you want to just add, you know. And if I speed that up now, it's like, oh, sweet. Now I could actually get it, just gonna whoosh, get that little. So that's some other ways that you can actually start to animate these things. definitely like some fun little stuff that you can do. Okay. And then once again, once that's all done, you can just jump in. Go back to your final comp. And then have those things just kind of disappear afterwards. Boom. Part 4. Oh, I hate when it does that. Stop it. Hate when it does that. File. Save as. Yeah, sometimes that happens. Oh, if I find, here's one more thing. If I find, like, as I'm working in my compositions, they're all defaulting because that's why I have it set to 30 seconds. If you're like, wow, you know what? It doesn't need to be that. I can actually bring it down to 4 seconds. I right-click on my little range right here. And I say trim comp to work area. This is my work area. Boop, and now it's trimmed to that. So now it's not as long. Okay. There we go. Now I can actually do that. See if it'll like it this time. Yay. And then I could actually go in and shorten that up using the time stretch. Make that 2 seconds. There we go. Maybe make it even shorter. Make it a second and a half. That's cool. There we go. Yay.